Well, after a long time waiting, we finally started the book of Revelation. My goal yesterday was just to give us an overview of how do we approach the book, why should we study the book, what are the interpretive grids that we should use in order to ensure that we are staying within the parameters of orthodoxy, and just wanted to touch on a couple more things in relation to it. First is the primary way most people have been taught to read Revelation is through what is called a dispensational lens, which is a stereotypical approach to that would be Left Behind. The argument that you're supposed to read everything sequentially and literally throughout Revelation, which, as I shared yesterday, Greg Beale in this book on a shorter commentary on Revelation reminds us that in Revelation 1 verse 1, there's this symbol that is signifying, signing these things. So we should read or interpret Revelation through the grid or the lens of these are signs that God is using to communicate truth. We're not necessarily supposed to read this sequentially. Now, I made a reference to this yesterday when I was talking about Revelation chapter 12, because pretty much all scholars agree that Revelation chapter 12 is referring to the birth of Jesus. I'm just going to read a few verses here for you. It says, "A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in labor and agony as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven. There was a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its heads were 7 crowns. Its tail swept away a third of the stars in heaven and hurled them to the earth. And the dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she did give birth, it might devour her child. She gave birth to a son, a male, who is going to rule all nations with an iron rod. Her child was caught up to God and to his throne." I mentioned that yesterday. That is the rapture. Her child was raptured up to God and to his throne. "The woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God to be nourished there for 1,260 days. Talk about this when we get there, but that is most likely referring to the birth of Jesus, which took place previously to all the other events that were written about and taking place in here, which just signifies to us that we're not supposed to read Revelation as a sequential ordering of events. And when we get through the first 5 chapters, I'm going to do another overview of it's just digging into Revelation 6 through I think 16. Again, we'll get there. So just all my cards on the table. Most days when I wake up, I am pre-mill and post-trib. Most days. There's a hair's difference between pre-mill and, historic pre-mill and amillennial, which is just how do we interpret the 1,000 years referenced in Revelation chapter 20. Again, remember thinking that numbers throughout Revelation tend to be symbolic. Is 1,000 just the fullness of time? Is it referring to just a long period of time? Or is it exactly 1,000 years? When the numbers in Revelation, again, they just tend to be symbolic. So do we interpret the 1,000 years symbolically or not? I remember, again, just referencing my professor at seminary, one of the things that he said is it feels odd to us as you read through Revelation 20, because what it says is there were a number of those who were beheaded, those who were martyred, come back to life and are walking around on the earth, while those who are not saved are faced with eternal structure, just normal, what we call normal life. So it's like this weird in between time where it's not completely fulfilled, but it is a closer than what it is right now. Now, the way I've come to some conclusion on that is that 1,000 years serves as a sign or signifying that even if Jesus had come and set up his earthly reign, people would still refuse to bow the knee to him. And we actually have an example of that taking place. Jesus, in his post-resurrected body, is a picture, a foretaste of what that 1,000 years could potentially look like, where you have people whose bodies are perfected, interacting and mingling with those who are not yet perfected. So just some stuff for us to think about as we continue navigating through this. The other piece is, part of the reason I'm post-trib is there are a couple passages in Revelation that explicitly talk about believers being in there during the time of these intense, troubling times. So Revelation 9:4 says, "They were told not to harm," this is the 5th trumpet, "they were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any green plant or any tree, but only those people who do not have God's seal on their foreheads," which means there's people living on earth at that time that have God's seal on their foreheads. Another one that talks about is Revelation 17, and I'm just a couple examples. Revelation 17 verse 8. It says, those who live on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast that was and is not and is to come. So that is referring to saying there's some who live on earth whose names have not been written in the book of life. There's also those that live on earth whose names have been written in the book of life. Again, we'll look at those in more detail as we come up and continue walking through the text. But one quote I didn't have time to just fill into my sermon yesterday from Professor Blomberg is I like the way that he summarizes this. He's just the sign that we're living in the end times. Here's what he says, and I think this will just help solidify on the need for us to study this book. He says, the sign that we are living in the very end times is neither the Christianization of the world, nor the unparalleled horrors of the day, but the progressive polarization of good and evil, as it each increases through the power of Christ and the power of the enemy, respectively. So he actually has a picture in here where he like starts this way on one side and continues just getting further and further apart. And I think that's a beautiful picture of what we're seeing, increased polarization. Not saying that these are guaranteed to be the last days and Jesus is coming back within the next few years. It'd be great if he did. But none of us know that. Our job is to read this text, remember, interpret it, live out the truths in this text, and seek to be faithful throughout all of our lives. The one last thing that I wanted to note, I saw a lot of people taking pictures of my sermon slides yesterday, so I have put them now up on our website. So if you go to Subsplash and look at media and then go to the web page, which I will link to in the email, there's a tab that you can just click that says sermon slides, which has a PDF of all of my PowerPoint from yesterday. So you can feel free to download that and look through. You don't have to continue trying to take pictures. I think that's it for today. So this next week we will dig into and just study the first 8 verses of Revelation, kind of the introduction to the book as a whole, and provide some more groundwork and framework for us as we continue studying this book. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I have a bunch of resources on this book right now, and would love to share and distribute those as I am able to, and as you guys have questions. So hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and Lord willing, we'll see you on Sunday.